Today we'll be starting with law of torts in India, and we have already discussed the concept of law of tort, what it is. We have discussed the definitions, essentials of law of tort as to what all are required to consider a wrong under the category of tort. So when we talk about law of torts in India, we say that it is something that existed since pre-independence era, and there was a Sanskrit word that was used, which was the word was jimha, and which mean that mean crooked, and it was used in ancient Hindu law text in the sense of tortious or fraudulent conduct. So it is not something that has existed in few years or past few years. This is something that was there even in ancient India. But when we talk about the application of law of torts under Hindu law and under Muslim law, it has narrow conception, narrow application than what the application that the tort has under English law. And the punishment of crimes in these systems occupy more prominent place than compensation for wrong. So the application to say is the application is much narrower in under Indian jurisdiction than under the English UK jurisdiction, you can say, because here we are more focusing on compensation, and there the focus is on the punishments as well. So when we talk about law of tort in India presently, we say that it is something which is the outcome of English law of tort, and which is itself is based on the principle of common law of England. We have studied, taken up this aspect yesterday itself, that is a common law system. Tort, and the entire tort system is based on common law system. But when we talk about Indian courts, we say that Indian courts, before applying any English rule, they always see whether it is suited to the Indian societies and circumstances or not. Whether what is the position in India, what are the circumstances that are existing in India, and then these principles are applicable. So we say that the application of English law in India is what it is, of selective application. It's not that how it is applied in under English law in the similar way we are applying under the Indian law. So we say that Indian law of tort is based on English law and is continued by Article 13 and 372 of the Constitution, which has been interpreted to continue also the principle applied in India. So we say this, that yes, when we are talking about law, we say that it should not go against the fundamental rights. This is what we discussed in the previous semester, right? Article 13. I hope you remember Article 13 that was there. So we say that British Empire has taken up common law and tort law by to India by three presidency courts through the efforts of Sir Henry Maine and Sir James Stephen. The principles that was there, therefore there in deciding the tortious liability were taken up. And what were the basic principles? The principles were of justice, equity, and good conscience. So when we talk about this, we cannot skip talking about what was the observation given by Justice Bhagwati in MC Mehta versus Union of India, and which is one of the landmark judgment where Justice Bhagwati observed that we have to evolve new principles and lay down new norms, which will adequately deal with new problems which arise in a highly industrialized economy. We cannot allow our judicial thinking to be construed by reference to the law as it prevails in England, or for the matter of that, in any foreign country. We are certainly prepared to receive light from whatever source it comes, but we have to build our own jurisprudence. So, what is it? What is the statement that is made by Justice Bhagwati clearly states that when we talk about law of tort in India, it has been given a wider interpretation because the subject itself is very vague and it includes various types of liabilities and various modes of making the compensations and wrongs that are done. So it depends upon the system in which we are dealing with. So system with which we are dealing defines the as to what extent we can we can apply a particular law, and it is only that it should suit to the existing situations that are there in a given society, right? So Justice Bhagwati has clearly stated that when we talk about this, we cannot say that we have to apply it blindly. We cannot apply any rule blindly without considering that what are going to be the repercussions under Indian jurisdiction, right? So when we talk about this, we say that yes, when we talk about law of tort in India, we say that yes, during British rule in Indian court were under the Act of Parliament that was taken up by UK, and Indian enactments were also there, and whatever the acts were there by the Indian courts, that also based on, they were also taken up on the basis of justice, equity, and good conscience, because there were no specific rule of law that was applicable to a particular dispute. So what is the result? The result is that there should be application of mind, and that application of mind should be based on justice, equity, and good conscience. Okay, and this is not something new that you're studying. In previous semester also, we have studied about principle of natural justice. So when we are talking about this, we are saying that when there is no specific rule relating to a particular situation and there are infringement of rights, then what to do? The only thing that can be done is to apply these principles that are there, right? And in regard to the suits for damages for torts, court followed the English common law. When we talk about this, in application of torts in India, we are following this common law system that prevails in English common law, that is based on the justice, equity, and good conscience. Okay. So when we are saying there is unreasonable rules and they're unsuitable to Indian conditions, only then we say that particular law or rule that is applied in English law will not be applicable in India. So when we are saying, we say that English statutes that are dealing with tort law are not by its own force applicable in India, but when they are followed, but may be followed only under the accepted conditions for reasons, for certain reasons that are required to be taken up in a given system. Is it clear? Another case that is there is here you should know that even Section 9 of CPC is enables the civil courts to try all suits of civil nature, impliedly confer jurisdiction to apply the law of tort as principle of justice, equity, and good conscience. So we find this principle even under our law, that is Section 9 of CPC. And further, Justice Sahai has also supported this aspect that we should apply the rule of torts application of law of torts in certain situations, and it is basically based on the concept of morality. So what he said that truly speaking, the entire law of tort is founded and structured on morality. Therefore, it would be primitive to close strictly or close finally the ever expanding and growing horizon of tortious liability. So we cannot have a watertight compartment that can decide that yes, if this is what are the rules and these are the principles of law of tort, and we will not go beyond it. This is the principle of every law. If you see, every law changes with the change in society. No law is static, it is dynamic, be it any law. If you see, the principle is not applicable only for the law of tort, it is applicable even for other streams of law, other kinds of law. So, like for example, these are certain examples where the claims have been made. So, if there is an action for slanderous words, right, then in that case, a person can have an action. If a man gives another a cuff on ear, that also have an action, right? So we are saying that in certain situations, in certain circumstances where you are causing injury to the another person in whatever way, that person will have the remedy for the injury which has been caused to him or her, right? So what is it? We say that this is something that the law of tort, when we talk about law of tort in India, it is something which is very undefined. It has not been codified in India, but still we are applying these principles, these rules that are there on the basis of justice, equity, and good conscience. So Indian judiciary have been very creative, very active in providing judgments, in in providing various decisions under different circumstances, and the remedies have been provided in the form of compensations. So we say that yes, the area of or arena of tort of law is not something which is undefined. It is there, but yes, we have to keep this in mind that it is the judiciary that is playing role in shaping this law of tort, and we do not have any codified law relating to law of torts. Okay, so this is about the application of law of torts in India. You should know that what it is. So when we talk about law of tort, what are the basic principles? You can say that fundamental principles on which it is based on altrum non allendere, that means to hurt no one by words or deed. Actus cura nemi gravit, that means an act of a court that shall prejudice no one. Actus legi nemi est demus. That means an act in law shall prejudice no man. So, sic utrem tu at element non ladis, which means enjoy your own in such a manner as not to injure another person. It is not important for you to understand these latent terms. But yes, I will say this thing that at least you should know them, because if in case if you're going to again have objective type externals, then in that case you should know these things, because these are certain things that can be asked. So that's why I put this. So these are two basic principles: that you cannot hurt anybody, court will not be prejudiced, law will not be prejudiced, and your action should be such that it is not injuring the other party. Is it clear? So these are certain things that you need to keep in mind, that what is it when we talk about law of torts, when we talk about how it is applicable in India. These are certain things that you should keep in mind while the subject of law of tort. Now coming to the differences, now here we'll be talking about law of tort and torts. Then we'll come to law of tort and law of contract, right? And tort and contract distinctions is there. So then tort and quasi contract, and I think tort and crime. So these are four things that you should know. What is tort and torts? What is the relationship between the law of tort and law of torts? And this is something that is based on the pigeonhole theory, which is given by Salment. So, according to Winfield and Pollock, all injuries done to another person are tort unless there is some jurisdiction recognized by law. So he says that it should have been recognized, that tort should have been recognized by a particular jurisdiction. Only then it will be considered as tort. Therefore, this theory conveys that tort not merely consists those torts which have acquired specific names, but also include the wider perception that all unjustified harm is tortious. So they are not giving a watertight compartment for the law of tort to define that yes, these are the only acts that will be covered under law of tort. Winfield and Pollock says that we have a wider ambit of law of tort, and we need to understand this thing, that law of tort is what? It is something which is having a wider ambit to include any kind of harm that has been caused to the another party, right? So if there is, which we cannot define, basically what they say that we cannot define the ambit of tort. Whereas law of torts, it says that this theory was supported by Salmond, and it is known as pigeonhole theory. According to this theory, the law of torts consists of a set of pigeonholes. Each hole contains a specific tort. If the wrong doesn't fit in any of these pigeonholes, then no tort is said to be committed. So what is the second theory saying? The second theory is saying that we have to have a defined ambit of what will be covered under law of torts. So one is saying that we cannot define, the other theory says that we have to define. Now, both the theories have their pros and cons. So when we are talking about law of tort, we say that what is the advantage? It says that your rights are protected in case there is any infringement by the another party and it is not being taken up before by the court, but still there is a remedy that is available to you. You can still move the court of law. Like if I have mentioned in yesterday's class, there is this concept of cyber tort, which is considered to be misnomer by many authors, but it is taken up that any kind of use of technology for troubling others or creating any mental distress for others, it is something which is covered under cyber tort. So what is it? It is not something which has been taken up by the courts as of now. Even when we talk about infringement of right to privacy, right? You are troubling the other person. That is also what is covered under IPC. But when we talk about torts, it's not something which is still yet been taken up. So what is it saying? It's saying that even if kind of infringement like this, you can move the court of law. So first theory is opening up the for these kind of wrongs that are done to an. The second is doing what? It is so when we are talking about this, we say that yes, defining a particular aspect will not lead to ambiguities. This is the advantage of the second theory, that if we define that yes, this is what will be covered under law of tort, then what is the benefit? Benefit is that there is no ambiguity. We know that what we have to do, for what we have to go move the court of law. There is clarity, right? There is certainty. So when we talk about these two theories, you need to understand that yes, both have their own pros and cons, but yes, what we follow, what is actually followed is that what if I say that taking into consideration the judgments that are given by Indian jurisdiction, I'll say this thing that it is the concept which is given by Winfield which is followed, and the ambit remains open for the judgments that are for the interpretations that can be taken up by the judiciary. So we cannot say that this is what will be included and this is what will not be included. If the situation is such, if the changes have taken place in the society, yes, we need to come out of our primitive modes of deciding the cases. We have to we take up the modern ways of deciding a particular judgment. Okay, so you should know that what is it, the difference between law of tort and law of torts, that is there. And it is not what we say, we can say it is the we say that it is law of tort. We have still have the wider ambit to include various other aspects that are not yet covered, and they possibly can be covered under law of tort. Clear? Only if you prove that they have actionable claims. So when we talk about the difference between law of tort and law of contract, so when we talk about a law of tort and law of contract, we say that tort emphasizes upon rights and duties in torts are such which are created by law, whereas when we talk about the rights and duties under the contract, it is something which is created out of an agreement between the parties, right? So we it is a creation of law, and it is a creation of, with the through the contract. So when we talk about tort, in tort there is a violation of of right in rem, that is a right vested in some determinate person and available against the entire world. Whereas when we talk about breach of contract, we say there is an infringement of right in personam, that is right which is available only to some definite person and in which society has no concern, because these are two parties who have entered into a contract, right? So it will only be having application to that level. Second is in tort, when we talk about motive plays a role. Sorry, motive plays no role. The motive for breach of duty is immaterial, and the defendant cannot take the defense of good faith or good motive, and he has to pay the damages to the plaintiff. Whereas when we talk about breach of contract, motive is often taken into consideration, right? That if thus when we say the defendant has does not act with good motive or in good faith to save a person from being harmed, then he will not be he will not be liable to plaintiff if he proves this, that there was no motive behind it. When we talk about tort, in tort the exemplary damages are awarded to punish the defendant. In contracts, when there is breach of contract, the nature of damage is compensatory, and it is generally fixed between the parties to the contract. When we talk about tort, the damages are generally unliquidated and determined by the court on facts and circumstances. Whereas breach of contract, the damages are fixed as per the terms and conditions of the contract that our parties have entered into. Then in tort, damages are both compensatory, punishment can also there, and in contract, we have damages only compensatory and no punishing or something like that, similar to this. So when we talk about this, we say that this I'll come to later on this slide. Okay. So this is what we have discussed, that when we talk about contract and when we talk about tort, we say that it is the privity of contract which is present in the contract. The stranger cannot sue and be sued, right? So in this case, in the contract, if you remember your privity of contract, that is there, right? So these are few distinction that I've already stated you in this slide. So this is one of the case Jono versus Stevenson, which you can understand, you can take up in order to understand that even if there is no written contract, but yes, if a person, this is a case where in a ginger bottle, beer bottle, there was it was contaminated. Okay, and there was a snail. Have you heard of this case? Anyone? Jono versus Stevenson? While going, while studying for.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
So this is also one of the famous case under law of tort. So it has explained that the person who is purchasing, there is a contract that a person need to give the services or goods that are not contaminated, or and that will not affect the health of the another person, right? So this was a case where we say that though there is about there is no contractual duty on the part of the manufacturer to other, but a majority of the House of Lords held that he owed a duty to take care that the bottle did not contain noxious matter, and that he was liable if that. So if you are going to a restaurant and you suffer from any food poisoning, you can sue that particular restaurant for not providing you with the good under law of tort, right? So this is one example that is there. This is what I've already explained to you, that what is the difference between tort and contract, right? Now, so when we talk about contract, the obligation imposed contract have been agreed by the parties, and this is only on the basis of this agreement that the parties owe responsibility to each other, on the basis of which compensation is decided, right? And it decides the nature of the remedy that can be availed by one of by the parties. So when we talk about that similarity, what is there between tort and contract is that there is infringement of private act rights, there is action by injured party, and there is compensation, which is a main remedy. Though there is punishing aspect also, which is there, but yes, these are certain similarities that you will see under tort and contract, but still they differ, right? There is a difference between when we talk about law of contract and law of tort, and but when we talk about there is a blur boundary between the both. They are connected with each other. So this is what this blur boundary is talking about, the first aspect. Is it clear? So this is like Donoghue versus Stevenson will fall under this category, this area where they are meeting. So it's a contract and it amounts to tort also. Is it clear? So this aspect where there is against an individual party, there is an injured party and damages can be claimed. Now, before coming to causal contract, I would like to take up the difference between tort and crime. Now, when we talk about tort and crime, we say that in tort there is an infringement of private or civil rights, whereas in crime there is a breach of public rights. This is something that you already are aware of, these aspects, these differences, but still I'm discussing this with you so that there is you refresh everything in your mind, right? So when we talk about this, we are saying that it is something which is a infringement of private rights, it is the infringement of public rights, right? Actions against a wrongdoer is initiated in civil court under tort, whereas it is the criminal court under which the legal proceedings are taken up, right? In tort, the suit for damage is filed in the court against wrongdoer, whereas under crime, it is the proceedings are initiated. Basically, the difference is that under tort we file a suit for damage, whereas under this we file a criminal petition under crime. When we talk about torts, here the wrongdoer has to compensate the injured party, and which is mainly pecuniary in nature, monetary in nature. Whereas when we talk about criminal aspect, we say that the punishments are there. There can be some penalties also in the form of money, and monetary penalties are there. But the punishments are there, and these punishments differ on the basis of the wrong that has been done or the crime that has been committed by the parties. So when we talk about tort, the main aim is to recompensate the plaintiff or any loss or injury which has been suffered by him or her because of the wrongful act of defendant. And whereas under crime, the main aim is to teach the lesson through punishments to the accused. What is this? It is the teaching of the lessons, so that there is no repetition of the offense that has been committed by the criminal, by the accused person. So that's why in criminal law we have different theories of punishments also, depending upon the crime, whether it is a warrantable, non-warrantable. And whereas we say that in tort, the defendant is relieved by paying the compensation. Am I audible? Akriti, am I audible?
Ma'am, your voice is
Yes, ma'am.
cracking.
Yes, ma'am. You're audible, but your voice is
Okay.
cracked.
Yes, ma'am.
So there was some disturbance in between. Fine. Fine. I was on this point where the what is the purpose? The purpose is to recompensate under tort, whereas under crime it is to teach a lesson. Now, when we find that the defendant is relieved after paying the compensation, whereas in crime the punishment can go for the life imprisonment also, depending upon the crime. So it is not that every time under the criminal law the person is relieved after making suffering after going through a particular punishment or or penalty, but there remains a taboo that is there. So this is what we have discussed under tort and crime. All this discussed. I'll post the uh, PPT also. Don't worry about that. Right. So this is what I was talking about. That what are the functions? So we are saying that on the basis of functions also we can distinguish between tort and crime. That corrective justice, loss distribution, deterrence is there under crime, compensation, redress of social grievance, deep pocket theory. Okay. These are certain differences that are there. Deep pocket theory will do again when do vicarious liability. So don't worry about that aspect. Right. So last is torts and quasi contract. When we talk about quasi contract, it covers those situations where a person is held liable to another without any agreement for money or benefit received by him to which the other person is better entitled. Right. When we talk about quasi contract, how it differs from tort is there is no duty owed to a person for the duty to repay money or benefits received, unlike tort under quasi contract, right, where there is a duty where there is a duty imposed. In quasi contract the damages recoverable are liquidated damages and not unliquidated damages as under the tort. So when we talk about quasi contract, it resembles torts and differ from contract in one aspect, and that is what the obligation in quasi contract and in tort is imposed by law and not under any agreement. In yet another dimension, when we talk about quasi contract, it differ from tort and contract. Like for example, A pays a sum of money by mistake to B. In quasi contract, B is under no duty not to accept the money, and there is only a secondary duty to return it, right? While in both tort and contract, there is a primary duty, the breach of which gives rise to remedial duty to pay compensation. I hope you must have studied about the concept of quasi contract in your law of contract in the previous semester also, right? And please recollect what it is. So we are saying that there is no written contract, but still there exists a contract. But the level of duties that exist differs under quasi contract, right? So when we are talking about contract and quasi contract, in two respects it differs. Just like contract, it is a right in personam. The claim in quasi contract is usually for liquidated damages or money, right? That is whereas under torts it's unliquidated damages for the crime. So these are few things that are there, tort and quasi. Yeah, this is done. Okay, so I'll be posting the PPT. Okay. Tort liability will do, though it is not specifically provided in your syllabus, right? But you should know that what are the types of tort liability, like fault liability, type of injury, type of damage, right? And excuses that are there, though it is not something which is there. But yes, as we will do, we'll go on with our syllabus. That's why I provided you only with the chart, though it will not be asked in detail that what it is. We'll be covering negligence, strict liability. So you should know that it comes under fault liability, right? Then you should know that what are the types of injuries, that is to the person and to the property, how it is considered to the property person and to the property. What are the damages, types of damages that are provided under torts is the compensatory and punitive. And what are the excuses, negligence of plaintiff and assumption of risk. So this is something that we will take up in the coming units, all this strict liability, negligence, nuisance, right? But this is an overall understanding of what law of tort is talking about and what it is. So this is only for your understanding of entire aspect of tort, that what are the injuries, damages, or excuses that can be there, what can be the fault and everything, right? So though this is and I'll be taking up the giving you any kind of like